Washington, Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele stands today as one of the most powerful and polarizing leaders in Latin America, hailed by some as the man who crushed El Salvador's brutal gang violence, and by others as a leader who made a dark bargain with the very criminals he claims to have defeated. When Bukele launched his war on gangs in 2022, it was with dramatic flair. He declared a state of emergency, suspended constitutional rights, and sent tens of thousands of young men, many covered in MS-13 tattoos, into Pact prisons. The government's message was simple: zero tolerance. "We are not going to stop until we capture the last remaining terrorist," Bukele vowed in 2023. And on paper, the results have been striking. Recorded murders fell from 2,398 in 2019 to just 114 in 2024, making El Salvador suddenly one of the safest countries in the region. Streets once dominated by gang lookouts are now filled with families and street vendors. Donald Trump praised him last month, declaring that Salvadorans have a tremendous president. But that's just part of the story. Behind the image of an iron-fisted reformer, Bukele's rise to power was shaped by political deals, secret negotiations, and uneasy alliances. According to U.S. federal indictments, reports by the Treasury Department, regional analysts, and Salvadoran media, Bukele's government reached covert agreements with MS-13 leaders even as he publicly vowed to destroy them. In fact, Bukele's own political ascent was aided by a network of unlikely allies, from former leftist guerrillas to Venezuelan oil interests and, critically, gang leaders looking to secure their power. USA Today has learned that in March, Trump's Justice Department quietly dropped terrorism charges against Cesar Humberto López Larrios, an alleged top MS-13 leader and one of the gang's infamous 12 Apostles of the Devil. López Larrios was returned to El Salvador before he could potentially reveal damaging details about Bukele's dealings in an American courtroom. And López Larrios isn't the only figure with potentially explosive information. A former president of El Salvador's National Assembly, familiar with the inner workings of gangland negotiations, was seized by U.S. immigration officers this spring and now awaits deportation to his homeland, where he was convicted in absentia for illicit dealings with gangs. According to U.S. prosecutors, Salvadoran journalists, and people familiar with the negotiations, Bukele's government offered MS-13 leaders prison privileges, financial incentives, and, most critically, a guarantee against extradition to the United States. In exchange, the gangs agreed to reduce homicides and shore up Bukele's political standing. There are serious allegations that Bukele purchased peace by making deals with the gangs that Trump says he's at war with, said former Rep. Tom Malinowski, D. New Jersey, who once led the State Department's Democracy and Human Rights Office. Despite the swirling allegations, the Biden White House has praised Bukele's cooperation. "We are grateful for President Bukele's partnership and for SECO, one of the most secure facilities in the world. There is no better place for these sick criminals," said White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson, referring to the massive prison where thousands of MS-13 members and hundreds of Venezuelans deported from the U.S. are now held. Jackson, however, declined to address questions about Bukele's alleged collusion with MS-13. The Salvadoran embassy did not respond to requests for comment. Bukele's relationship with Washington has been shaped not just by political maneuvers but also by the Trump administration's determination to crack down on MS-13. The centerpiece of that effort was Joint Task Force Vulcan, a specialized unit launched in 2019. Staffed by FBI agents, Homeland Security investigators, the DEA, and other federal officers, Vulcan's mission was singular: to destroy MS-13, a violent evil gang of people, as Trump put it. What Vulcan uncovered, however, was a gang that looked less like a street-level criminal outfit and more like a paramilitary force. Investigators learned that MS-13 operated with strict hierarchies, military-style command structures, and a transnational reach spanning from Central America to U.S. cities. Their network moved drugs, weapons, and human beings across borders with brutal efficiency. As Vulcan targeted MS-13's top leaders, the so-called Ronfla Nacional, or National Board, investigators also began piecing together Bukele's covert contacts with the gang's leadership. According to federal indictments and leaked documents, Bukele's intermediaries negotiated directly with imprisoned gang bosses, promising better treatment, reduced sentences, and protection from extradition in exchange for a dramatic drop in violence. For Bukele, the gamble paid off. As homicides plunged, his popularity soared. Poll after poll showed approval ratings above 80%, making him one of the most popular leaders in the Western Hemisphere. His political machine tightened its grip on El Salvador's Congress, judiciary, and media. Critics were jailed or exiled, independent newsrooms shuttered, and opposition parties marginalized. Yet beneath the surface, questions about the durability of Bukele's peace persist. Experts warn that the truce with MS-13 may not last forever, and that the gangs, far from being eradicated, may be biding their time, consolidating power, and waiting for a future opportunity to strike. There's a difference between dismantling a criminal organization and cutting a deal with it, said Cecilia Menjivar, a scholar of Central American politics at UCLA. Bukele has reduced homicides, but at what cost? He's given the gangs breathing room and political leverage. Meanwhile, U.S. officials quietly acknowledge the tension between supporting Bukele's crackdown and worrying about his methods. The deportation of hundreds of Venezuelans to El Salvador, under an agreement struck between Bukele and U.S. authorities, has sparked criticism from human rights advocates who describe the Sacó mega prison as a human rights disaster. Opened in early 2023, the Sacó facility can house up to 40,000 inmates, making it one of the largest prisons in the world. Images released by the Salvadoran government showed tattooed prisoners packed tightly into concrete cells, heads shaved, bodies crouched or kneeling under armed guard. Bukele boasts that Sacó is the most secure prison in the world, but human rights groups say it's also a place of abuse, overcrowding, and indefinite detention without trial. Yet none of this has slowed Bukele's momentum. His party dominates the national legislature. His allies control key judicial posts. And earlier this year, he won re-election by a landslide, cementing his status as El Salvador's most dominant leader in decades. Bukele's personal brand, a mix of millennial tech-savvy, authoritarian swagger, and populist rhetoric, has made him a celebrity far beyond El Salvador. On TikTok, he posts videos touting his achievements. On Twitter, he spars with critics and amplifies his message to millions. For many Salvadorans, the appeal is clear: under Bukele, they feel safer. For the first time in decades, they can walk their neighborhoods without fear. But for others, including members of the U.S. intelligence community, the long-term risks loom large. What happens if the gangs decide the truce no longer serves them? What if the next generation of Salvadoran leaders inherits a system where organized crime has been normalized and embedded in the state? There's always a price when you make a deal with the devil, said one former U.S. official familiar with Vulcan's investigations. And Bukele has made several. As Bukele tightens his grip on El Salvador, Washington faces a dilemma: continue backing a leader who delivers short-term results but flouts democratic norms, or risk destabilizing a fragile region by pushing him away. For now, the Biden administration appears to be betting on Bukele. But the details of his deals, his methods, and his ambitions remain under scrutiny. And the question lingering over El Salvador's future is the same one haunting its past: can peace built on secret bargains ever truly last?